welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're going to do things a little bit differently. We're going to be taking a deep dive into your future, specifically your career ambitions. You've given us some pretty fascinating stuff to work with here, some notes, excerpts from Grace Lorden's book, Think Big. Your notes are great, by the way, a mix of detailed bullet points and some seriously cool mind maps. You're a visual thinker, huh?
Yeah, it looks like you've already started connecting your personal goals to the kind of strategies Lorden talks about, like that think big, start small idea.
Oh, absolutely. The book really hammers home this point that huge life changes, they don't just happen overnight. It's about those consistent small choices over a long period,
Yeah.
like 2, 5, even 10 years.
And having a clear vision of where you want to be makes those choices so much clearer. You've outlined some seriously ambitious goals in these notes, launching your own sustainable clothing line, becoming fluent in Mandarin, even writing a children's book.
You're definitely not afraid to dream big. And Lorden's own career is a perfect example of how this can actually work. Early on, she was told it would take at least 5 years to reach senior lecturer.
Oof, hearing that could be pretty discouraging, I imagine.
Absolutely. She even started doubting her own abilities. But you know what? 5 years later, not only did she reach that level, but she exceeded it, became an associate professor. It's really something. What seemed like a limitation actually fueled her progress.
Yeah, that's the power of a growth mindset, right? Like Carol Dweck's research shows, our abilities, they're not fixed. We can develop intelligence skills over time by embracing challenges and viewing setbacks as learning opportunities.
And you seem to already have that growth mindset. Your notes are filled with
Yeah,
ways you want to grow, skills you want to acquire. It's clear you believe you have control over your own life, that your actions directly impact your outcomes. It's that
yeah.
internal locus of control thing, a powerful predictor of success, they say.
Totally. But, you know, Lorden points out that even with ambitious goals and a growth mindset, the stories we tell ourselves can either empower us or hold us back.
Right, those narratives we create about what we can and can't do. Think Big uses some really compelling examples to illustrate this.
Like Ranch, right, convinced himself he wasn't organized enough to go back to university. And Katie, stuck in a job she hated because she was scared to deviate from what she saw as a successful path.
And then there's one, totally content with the status quo, even though, deep down, he really craved change. Their stories highlight how these internal narratives can keep us trapped in our comfort zones.
I think this is where we can dive a little deeper into your notes, actually. You mentioned feeling overwhelmed by the thought of starting your own business. Could that be a narrative holding you back? Let's unpack that fear and see if it's really valid.
Yeah, that's a great point. Sometimes just recognizing those limiting beliefs, that's the first step to breaking free. Now, let's get to the good stuff, the hacks that can actually help us achieve those big goals. One of the core messages of Think Big is skill acquisition.
And you've already started this in your notes, right? You've identified the skills your future you will need. Leadership, financial literacy, design thinking. These are all fantastic starting points.
Lorden uses this example of Jerome, who wanted to switch careers. From banking to designing online games. He knew he needed to learn how to code, so he made time every evening after work to teach himself.
It highlights how gaining new skills doesn't have to be this huge life upheaval. Jerome found a way to make consistent progress, even with a full-time job. And this idea of continuous learning, that's something you've highlighted in your notes too.
Definitely. I've mentioned wanting to dedicate more time to learning, but fitting it into a busy schedule is tough. Lorden suggests at least one 90-minute block each week for focused learning.
That's a great starting point. But research shows even shorter, more frequent bursts can be super effective. Think about what fits your schedule and your learning style best.
Yeah, no one-size-fits-all approach. It's about finding what works for you. Now let's talk about something that can be a bit daunting, networking.
It often gets this reputation as a big, scary thing, but it really doesn't have to be. You've already recognized how important it is. You've even listed it as one of your goals. What are some of the feelings you get when you think about networking?
Well, putting yourself out there can be intimidating, especially if you're more introverted. But Lorden emphasizes networking is really just about connecting with people who can offer advice, insights, or just a different perspective.
And research shows we tend to underestimate how likely people are to say yes to a request for advice or just a conversation. We let that fear of rejection stop us from making potentially valuable connections.
That's so true. We build these mental barriers that might not even exist. Lorden suggests aiming for at least 5 new connections a month. And they don't have to be at formal events.
Exactly. It could be connecting with colleagues in different departments, going to online webinars, or even reaching out to someone you admire on LinkedIn. You mentioned wanting to learn Mandarin. Maybe you could connect with someone fluent and just ask for tips on getting started.
That's a fantastic idea. It shows how networking can be a natural part of your interests and goals.
Totally. And don't forget about the opportunities for skill development
Yeah.
that are available to you right now.
Right. Sometimes we overlook what's right under our noses.
Yeah.
Are there projects at your current job that could give you experience related to your future you goals?
Mm.
Maybe a chance to volunteer for a leadership role or shadow someone in a different department.
It's a great way to show initiative and get practical experience while you're still in your current role. You never know, you might discover talents or passions that you didn't even know you had.
Okay, so we've talked about thinking big, breaking down goals, getting those skills. But now let's shift gears a little. Let's talk about something that can sabotage our progress. Those sneaky mental shortcuts our brains love to take. Cognitive biases.
Ah, yes. Our brains are always trying to simplify information, make quick decisions right. But sometimes these shortcuts lead to, well, errors in judgment that can impact our own choices and how others see us.
And Lorden really focuses on a few key biases that are super relevant to career goals. Let's start with one we're probably all guilty of, the planning fallacy.
Oh, the classic. That tendency to underestimate how long things will actually take. We make these overly optimistic timelines and completely forget about unexpected delays and obstacles.
I am the queen of underestimating time. Just last week, I thought I could reorganize my entire closet in an afternoon. Let's just say it's still a work in progress.
Happens to the best of us. That's why Lorden suggests multiplying our time estimates by 1.5. Simple but effective. Builds in a buffer for those inevitable hiccups.
I love that. A practical tip we can all use right away. Another bias she highlights is the spotlight effect. Do you want to explain that one?
Sure, it's that tendency to think everyone's noticing our mistakes, like we're under a microscope. It makes us super cautious and risk-averse.
Like when you trip and fall, and you feel like everyone's staring, even though most people probably didn't even notice.
Exactly. To combat this, Lorden suggests sharing your work more often. You'll realize the feedback is rarely as bad as you imagine. It'll free you up to take more risks, experiment more, without that fear of judgment.
Great advice. It's about getting comfortable putting ourselves out there, even if we make a few mistakes along the way. And there's one more bias that's really important to be aware of,
Yeah.
especially at work.
You're talking about the fundamental attribution error, right?
Yes.
That's when we attribute other people's behavior to their personality,
Right.
rather than the situation. Like if a colleague misses a deadline, we might think they're lazy or irresponsible, without considering they might be dealing with a family emergency or something.
We jump to conclusions about their character without knowing the context.
Exactly. This can lead to misjudgments, conflicts, missed opportunities for connection and collaboration.
So it's about being mindful of this bias, trying to see things from other people's perspectives before we judge. But it's not just about understanding our own biases. It's also important to recognize how other people's biases might be affecting us.
Right, and that's where things can get a little trickier. Lorden looks at how unconscious biases, based on gender, age, even how we look, can impact how others perceive us, even if those things have nothing to do with our actual skills.
So we could be doing everything right, building skills, networking, and still face hurdles because of someone else's preconceived notions.
That's the unfortunate reality, yeah.
It can feel a little discouraging.
I get that. But Lorden doesn't just leave us with this grim reality. She offers some strategies for navigating these challenges. One of the key suggestions is to focus on acquiring signals that align with the role or industry you want.
Signals? I'm not sure I follow.
Think of it as building a reputation, a track record that speaks for itself, attending industry conferences, publishing articles, earning certifications, even volunteering for projects that are relevant.
Ah, I see. It's like creating this portfolio of evidence. That shows your expertise, your passion, even if those initial impressions might be clouded by bias, backing up your words with concrete actions.
Exactly. It's showing, not just telling, that you're the right person.
I love that. It's taking control of the narrative, even when things might be working against you. Like that saying, actions speak louder than words.
Absolutely. Speaking of actions, remember that three-person feedback rule we talked about?
Yes, finding those 3 trusted advisors who can give you different perspectives and honest feedback.
Well, Lorden suggests applying that here too. Get feedback from people who are aware of those potential biases. Maybe mentors who face similar challenges, colleagues from underrepresented groups, even people outside your industry who can offer a more objective view.
So it's getting feedback not just on your work, but also on how biases might be impacting how you're perceived. And those advisors can help you come up with strategies to overcome those biases.
You got it. It's about turning those blind spots into opportunities for growth and for advocacy.
We've tackled some heavy topics today. Unconscious bias, challenging social dynamics, even dealing with rejection.
We have.
But I appreciate that Think Big focuses on empowerment, taking ownership of our own journeys. And one of the most empowering messages is that we can actually rewire our brains
Yeah.
for resilience, confidence, even success.
Totally. It's all about neuroplasticity, right? The brain's amazing ability to change and adapt. Lorden gives us a whole toolkit of strategies for doing just that.
One technique she mentions is positive self-talk, consciously replacing those negative self-defeating thoughts with positive affirmations, like choosing to focus on the empowering narrative.
Like you're saying, I am capable of achieving this, instead of I can't do this. It sounds almost too simple, but it can make a huge difference.
It can. Another powerful tool is visualization, creating a mental picture of yourself succeeding, actually experiencing those achievements.
Athletes and performers use that all the time, right? You're essentially training your brain to believe that success is not only possible, but inevitable.
By repeatedly visualizing it, you're strengthening the neural pathways associated with those positive outcomes, priming your brain for achievement.
Precisely.
Okay, I'm definitely adding visualization to my routine.
Yeah.
What other techniques does Lorden suggest?
One that I find really valuable is mindfulness. It's about cultivating a state of present moment awareness, paying attention to your thoughts and feelings without judgment.
It's like silencing that inner critic, that voice of self-doubt, and creating space for calm and clarity.
Yeah, and research has shown mindfulness can significantly reduce stress, help us manage our emotions, and even improve focus and concentration.
So it's not just about feeling calmer, it's about actually boosting those cognitive abilities, which can only help us on this journey.
Absolutely. All these techniques, positive self-talk, visualization, mindfulness, they work together to rewire our brains for resilience and success.
Okay, so confession time. I'm a bit of a control freak. I love to plan, organize, know what's coming next. But Think Big has taught me that sometimes. Letting go and embracing uncertainty. It's essential.
That's such a valuable insight. It's a big theme in the book, actually. Lorden talks about being open to new opportunities, even if they weren't part of the original plan.
Because sometimes the most rewarding paths are the ones we didn't even know existed. Those unexpected detours, they can lead to some amazing discoveries.
It's like serendipity, right? The idea that good things often happen when we're not actively searching for them. It's about being open to the unexpected.
Trusting that the universe might have a plan for us, even if it's not the one we initially envisioned. That takes a lot of faith.
It does. It's letting go of that need to control everything and being open to those chance encounters, those twists of fate that can lead us in exciting new directions.
Trying to channel my inner Zen master here and embrace the unknown. But while we're on the topic, there's another element Lorden discusses that I find fascinating: the power of luck.
Ah, luck, that elusive factor we can't always control, but it seems to be part of so many success stories.
Right, and Lorden acknowledges its role. But she offers an interesting perspective. She argues that luck is often the result of preparation meeting opportunity.
Meaning, you got to put yourself out there, create those opportunities for serendipity to strike. If you're not ready when that chance comes along, it might just pass you by.
It's about having those skills, that network, and then being ready to recognize those unexpected doors that might open. Being in the right place at the right time isn't enough. You have to be ready to walk through that door.
It reminds me of this study, where people who considered themselves lucky were actually better at spotting opportunities because they were more open to new experiences, less fixated on a specific outcome.
So it's not just about being lucky. It's about having the mindset and skills to capitalize on those lucky breaks.
Exactly. It all comes back to continuous learning, stepping outside your comfort zone, cultivating that growth mindset.
Now, I'm curious, when you think about luck in your own career, what comes to mind? Have there been times where preparation met opportunity, or where a random event led to something positive?
That's a great question. Reflecting on those experiences can help you see patterns and maybe even figure out strategies for creating more of those lucky moments.
Yeah.
It's about recognizing that we often have more control over our luck than we realize.
Looking back on my own path, there have definitely been times where being open to the unexpected led to incredible opportunities. And that makes me think about another essential element for anyone on a think big journey,
Mm.
self-care.
Ah, yes. Self-care is so often overlooked when we're chasing these big goals, but it's absolutely crucial for staying on track and feeling good.
Lorden dedicates a whole chapter to it, which I love. She talks about prioritizing sleep, managing stress, building those healthy habits. We can't perform at our best if we're running on empty.
Exactly. We need to recharge and take care of ourselves, physically and mentally. Otherwise, we risk burnout, and that can derail even the most carefully crafted plans.
It's about finding that balance between pushing for our goals and taking care of our well-being. It's not selfish, it's essential.
And it's about making those self-care rituals non-negotiable, whether it's daily meditation, a weekly yoga class, a monthly massage, whatever helps you recharge and de-stress.
And those simple pleasures too, right? Spending time in nature, listening to music, connecting with loved ones, those are essential fuel for the journey.
They are. They remind us why we're doing all of this in the first place. It's not just about achieving a goal, it's about living a fulfilling life.
So in this deep dive so far, we've talked about a lot. Thinking big, starting small, overcoming biases, building resilience, embracing uncertainty, creating our own luck, prioritizing self-care. It's been quite a journey.
It has, and I think we've uncovered some really valuable insights that can help you navigate your own think big adventure. But remember, it's an ongoing process. It's not about reaching some perfect end state.
Right, it's about constant learning, growth,
Yeah.
adapting to those inevitable challenges.
And it's about figuring out what works best for you, what really resonated with you from what we've discussed so far. What strategies are you excited to try out?
Great question. As you think about these insights, consider those small steps you can take to actually put these ideas into action. Maybe it's blocking out 90 minutes for focused learning, reaching out to a potential mentor, even just spending a few minutes each day on positive self-talk.
Even small actions, when you do them consistently, can lead to incredible transformations over time. So keep thinking big, keep taking those steps, and most importantly, keep believing in yourself. You got this.
I love that. Trust the process, enjoy the journey. But speaking of the journey, Lorden also talks about the importance of preparing for those bumps in the road, those everyday punches that life throws at us. How do we build that resilience to keep going, even when things get tough?
That's a great question, and one that we'll explore in the final part of our deep dive. We'll look at practical strategies for dealing with those challenges and bouncing back stronger than ever.
Fantastic. I'm eager to learn more.
So we've talked about how our own biases can, trip us up, right? But it's important to think about how other people's biases might be affecting our chances too.
Yeah, it's not just our own mental shortcuts. It's how those biases in others can influence how they see us, sometimes unfairly.
Exactly. Lorden talks about this fascinating experiment with IT professionals negotiating their rates.
Oh, a negotiation experiment. Those are always interesting. What did they find?
Well, they found that things like gender, age, even clothing could actually sway the offers these professionals got.
That's kind of disheartening, you know. They're not totally surprising, I guess. Sounds like first impressions, even unconscious ones, can really make a difference.
Unfortunately, yeah. And there's tons of research to back this up, from studies on resumes to those blind audition experiments. Bias can creep in everywhere. Job interviews, performance reviews, even client pitches.
It's like, even if we're doing all the right things, building skills, networking, we can still hit these roadblocks. Just because of someone else's preconceived notions, it's a bit discouraging.
I hear you, but Lorden doesn't just leave us hanging with that. She gives us ways to navigate this stuff. One thing she suggests is focusing on getting those signals that align with the role or industry you want.
Signals. Not sure what you mean by that.
Think of it like building a reputation, a track record that speaks for itself, like attending industry conferences, publishing articles, getting certifications, even volunteering for relevant projects.
Ah, I see. It's about creating that portfolio of evidence that shows your expertise, your passion. Even if those initial impressions are messed up by bias, you're backing up your words with, like, concrete actions.
Exactly. You're not just saying it, you're showing it.
I like that, taking control of the narrative. Even when external factors might be working against you. It's like that saying, actions speak louder than words.
Totally. And speaking of actions, remember the 3-person feedback rule we talked about?
Yeah, finding those trusted advisors to give you different perspectives, honest feedback.
Right. Well, Lorden says to apply that here too. Get feedback from people who understand those potential biases. Maybe mentors who face similar stuff. Colleagues from underrepresented groups. Even people outside your field who can offer a more objective view.
So getting feedback not just on your work itself, but on how biases might be coloring how people see you. And those advisors can help you figure out how to overcome that.
Exactly. Turning those blind spots into opportunities for growth. And even for advocating for yourself.
Man, we've covered some heavy stuff today. Unconscious bias, all those tricky social dynamics, even dealing with rejection.
We have.
But I appreciate that Think Big really focuses on empowerment, taking ownership, and one of the most powerful ideas is that we can rewire our brains for resilience, confidence, even success.
Right. It's amazing. It's all about neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to change and adapt throughout our lives. And Lorden gives us a whole bunch of tools to do just that.
Like that technique she mentions, positive self-talk, replacing those negative thoughts with affirmations that boost our confidence. It's like choosing to focus on that empowering story.
Yeah. Instead of saying, I can't do this, you say, I am capable of achieving this. It seems so simple, but it can be incredibly powerful.
Can. And then there's visualization, right? Creating a mental picture of yourself succeeding, actually experiencing those wins in your mind.
Like athletes do, right? You're training your brain to believe that success isn't just possible, it's inevitable.
And by visualizing it repeatedly, you're strengthening those neural pathways, the ones connected to positive outcomes. Like you're priming your brain for success.
Exactly.
I'm sold. Adding visualization to my routine. What other techniques are in Lorden's toolkit?
One I really love is mindfulness. It's about being present, in the moment, paying attention to your thoughts and feelings, but without judging them.
Quieting that inner critic, making space for calm and clarity.
And research shows mindfulness can help with so much. Reducing stress, managing emotions, even improving focus and concentration.
So it's not just about feeling better. It's actually boosting our brain power.
Exactly. All these techniques, the self-talk, visualization, mindfulness, they work together to rewire our brains, make us more resilient, more successful.
Okay, time for a confession. I'm a total control freak. Love to plan, organize, know what's coming next. But Think Big has really shown me that sometimes you got to let go. Embrace the uncertainty.
That's a huge insight, and it's a recurring theme in the book. Lorden talks about being open to new opportunities, even if they weren't part of the plan.
Because sometimes the best path is the one you didn't even know existed. Those unexpected detours, they can lead to those amazing discoveries.
Serendipity at its finest.
Trusting that the universe, or whatever, has a plan, even if it's not the one we had in mind. That takes a lot of faith, though.
It does. It's about letting go of that need to control and opening ourselves up to those chance encounters, those twists of fate that can take us to amazing places.
Got to channel my inner Zen master, I guess. Embrace the unknown. But since we're talking about letting go of control, there's another thing Lorden talks about that I find super interesting. The power of luck.
Luck. Always so elusive, but it seems to play a role in so many success stories.
Right. Lorden acknowledges that. But she has this really interesting take on it. She argues that luck is often what happens when preparation meets opportunity.
So you got to be ready when that opportunity comes knocking. If you're not prepared, it might just pass you by.
Having the skills, the network, and then being ready to spot those unexpected doors opening. Just being in the right place at the right time isn't enough. You got to be ready to walk through that door.
There was this study that showed people who considered themselves lucky were actually better at spotting opportunities because they were open to new experiences and not so focused on one specific outcome.
So it's not just about being lucky. It's about having the mindset and the skills to make the most of those lucky breaks.
Exactly. It all ties back to continuous learning, stepping outside your comfort zone, having that growth mindset.
Thinking about your own career. What comes to mind when you think about luck? Any times where preparation met opportunity or where a random event led to something great?
That's a good question to reflect on. Looking back can help you spot patterns, maybe even figure out some strategies for creating more of those lucky moments. We might have more control over our luck than we think.
Yeah, when I look back on my own path, there have definitely been times like that where being open to the unexpected led to some amazing things. Which brings me to another crucial thing for anyone on this Think Big journey, self-care.
Oh, absolutely. Self-care is so important, but it often gets pushed aside when we're striving for those big goals.
Lorden has a whole chapter on it, which I love. Prioritizing sleep, managing stress, building healthy habits. Because you can't function at your best when you're running on fumes.
Right. We need to recharge, take care of ourselves, both physically and mentally. Otherwise, we risk burnout. And that can totally derail us.
It's finding that balance between pushing for your goals and nurturing your well-being. It's not selfish. It's essential.
You got to make those self-care rituals non-negotiable. Whether it's daily meditation, weekly yoga, a monthly massage, whatever helps you unwind and de-stress.
And those simple pleasures, too, right? Nature, music, connecting with people you care about.
Absolutely. Those things remind us why we're doing all of this. It's not just about the destination, it's about living a fulfilling life along the way.
So in this deep dive, we've covered a lot. Thinking big, starting small. Those biases, resilience, uncertainty, luck, self-care. Quite the journey.
It has been. I think we've uncovered some great insights to help you on your own think big adventure. But remember, it's a journey, not a destination. It's not about reaching some kind of perfection.
Yeah, it's about constantly learning, growing, adapting to the challenges.
And finding what works best for you. What resonated with you the most? What are you excited to try out?
Such a good question. Think about those small steps you can take to put these ideas into action. Maybe blocking out that 90 minutes for learning, reaching out to a mentor, or even just practicing some positive self-talk every day.
Even the smallest actions, when done consistently, can make a huge difference. So keep thinking big, keep taking those small steps, and most importantly, keep believing in yourself. You've got this.
I love that. Trust the process, enjoy the journey. Speaking of the journey, though, Lorden talks about being ready for those bumps in the road, those everyday punches life throws our way. How do we build up that resilience to keep going, even when things get tough?
That is a great question, and it's one we're going to tackle in the final part of our deep dive. We'll look at practical strategies for dealing with those challenges and bouncing back stronger than ever.
Can't wait.
So, we've talked about thinking big, starting small, embracing that growth mindset, but let's be real for a second. The road to any goal, it's rarely smooth sailing.
It's not, is it? There are always going to be those bumps in the road, those everyday punches, as Lorden calls them.
Exactly, and it's how we handle those punches that really determines our success. Building that resilience, bouncing back from setbacks, adapting, moving forward even when things get tough.
And you've already started thinking about some of those potential punches in your notes.
You have things like public speaking anxiety, fear of failure, even the dreaded imposter syndrome, all very common challenges.
Oh, they are. And they can feel so overwhelming,
Yeah.
so personal. But it's good to know we're not alone in facing them. So how do we deal with these things? Any tips from Lorden?
She's got a three-step approach. Acknowledge, reframe, and act.
Okay, I like that. Break it down for us.
First, acknowledge the punch. Don't try to ignore it or pretend it's not there. Actually, name the emotion you're feeling, fear, anxiety, whatever it is. Be honest with yourself about what's going on.
Okay, so it's like saying, all right, this is happening. I'm feeling this. What now?
Exactly. Then reframe the situation. Instead of seeing this punch as a personal failure, try to look at it objectively. Ask yourself, what can I learn from this? Can I turn this into a growth opportunity?
Finding the silver lining, even if it's a tiny one.
Right. And finally, act. What concrete steps can you take to deal with it? Do you need support from a mentor, a colleague? Do you need to tweak your approach? Maybe you just need to take a break, recharge for a bit.
It's about moving from that feeling of being stuck to actually taking action, even if it's a small step.
It's about taking back your power.
And resilience is like a muscle, right?
Yeah.
The more you use it, the stronger it gets.
Exactly. The more you face those punches and come out the other side, the more confident and capable you become.
Like those cheesy motivational posters. Fall 7 times, stand up 8.
Well, there's some truth to that cheesiness. It's about embracing those stumbles as part of the journey, knowing that each time you fall, you learn something.
And speaking of learning, there's another piece of resilience I wanted to touch on. Self-compassion. Lorden talks about this a lot in Think Big. And it really struck a chord with me.
Self-compassion is so crucial, especially when we're reaching for big goals. It's treating ourselves with the same kindness we'd offer a friend going through something tough.
Yeah, we can be so hard on ourselves, setting these crazy high standards and then beating ourselves up when we don't meet them. It's exhausting.
It is, and it's not helpful at all. Lorden reminds us that perfectionism is often the biggest roadblock to success. It leads to procrastination, anxiety, burnout.
It's about giving ourselves permission to be human, to make mistakes, to learn and grow, embracing that messy middle you talked about.
Exactly. Focus on progress, not perfection. And celebrate those wins no matter how small.
I love that. Acknowledge how far you've come. Give yourself credit for all that effort. Be your own cheerleader.
That can make a huge difference in staying motivated and resilient, especially when those punches come flying at you.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Think Big, I want to leave you with a challenge. We've explored so many great ideas and strategies, Thinking big, starting small, overcoming those biases, building resilience, embracing uncertainty, even making our own luck, and prioritizing self-care. Now it's time to put it all into practice.
Yeah. What's one small step you can take this week to move closer to your vision? Maybe it's blocking out that 90 minutes for learning, reaching out to a mentor, or even just spending a few minutes each day on positive self-talk.
Remember, even those tiny actions, when you do them consistently, can lead to some pretty amazing results.
So keep thinking big, keep taking those steps, and most importantly, believe in yourself. You've got this.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And that's a wrap on our deep dive into your future. We covered a lot today, but this is just the beginning. It's your journey to create, and we're excited to see where it takes you.
Thanks for listening.